Well, thank you everybody for being here. Thank you, Joe, and I want to just acknowledge my colleagues, the Treasurer, Daniel Mookie, and the Minister, Steve Camper. Thank you, everybody. There's a lot of friends around the table, people that we've worked with incredibly closely over the last 2 years since we were elected to government, people that we rely on for advice, for opportunities and direction. And we wanted to make sure that you knew that we had your back and that we support the Indian Australian community without qualification in all circumstances. Now, it's a bit of a shame that we had to have this meeting, to be perfectly honest with you, but there was a few things that I think are worth repeating. The first one is, this isn't about an individual politician and it's not about a political party. This is about sending a clear and unambiguous message to Australia and Australians that we are deeply grateful for the Indian Australian community, that it's done so much for our country, and if in the process we can speak about the incredible successes that this community has achieved in Australia in a very short space of time. Not everything has to be negative. This can be a positive opportunity to send a clear, unambiguous message that this community has done so much for our country. It's dangerous to speak in generalities. It is, and in some instances, you do put yourself in a position where someone will step up and try to contradict you. But I think I can say, without fear of contradiction, that the Indian Australian community have done so much for our country. Hard-working, decent people who join communities, who raise their families, who prioritise their community, and lastly, but I think most importantly, who love Australia, who love our country. You know, I speak to families in parks in Western Sydney or on the beaches in Terrigal around Australia Day. I was up there the day before Australia Day, and I saw so many Indian Australian families enjoying the weather, and all of them had little Australian flags. They were some of the most patriotic people on the entire beach. And I think that's such a great story about how wonderful our country is, that recently arrived migrants, maybe first or perhaps second generation, can fall in love with Australia. And not just the land and the natural beauty and the beaches and the open spaces, but the culture that's been created here. Fall in love with it. Respectful of democracy, respectful of women, respectful of the right of freedom of speech and political engagement. I'm sorry I have to say it, and you don't need me to be an advocate for this community, and I certainly wouldn't present myself as a spokesperson for this community. But I am the Premier, and I think when it's under direct attack from neo-Nazi white supremacists who are spreading fear and misinformation into the community, then we shouldn't let that moment pass. There is sometimes that you do let the ball go through to the keeper and raise your bat, and there are other times when you don't. And it was my view, and the Treasurer and the Minister for Multiculturalism believed, now is the time not to let the ball go through to the keeper and pretend that it didn't happen, but instead confront this kind of misinformation. There's a few reasons for that. We've seen around the world, and there's an old saying, that a lie can make it all the way around the world before the truth gets its pants on. And in the age of social media, with people accessing websites and social media platforms, those lies metastasize and get even bigger. And they can only be confronted with the truth. We have to keep talking about that truth, the success of Australia, the success of the multicultural community that we've established, how grateful we are for our Indian Australian migrants, and how successful Indian Australians have been in all levels of civic and public life. We've got the Treasurer here, who is the first Member of Parliament to swear allegiance on the Bhagavad Gita, first one, as the Treasurer of New South Wales. We've got leaders in academia and business, in medicine and in commerce. And I specifically want to address two elements or slurs on the community, without speaking about individuals, that need to be completely pushed aside. Firstly, dependence on the welfare state. Well, the statistics indicate that the exact opposite is true. That this community has come to Australia and established businesses and worked incredibly hard on behalf of firms, joined families, joined communities, and added to the common wealth of our country. That's number one. More than any other wave of migration to our country. And number two, is that there's an allegiance to a political party, which again is untrue. We have had to fight, and I know this intimately, we have had to fight for every vote in New South Wales, but particularly the Indian Australian vote. We've had to present our credentials, explain what we would do for New South Wales. And it's a difficult vote to get. I mean, there's no stereotypes here. It's not a homogenous voting community. There's some deeply conservative people that support the Liberal Party. There's others that may be more progressive that support Labor. My point here is it reflects the broader community in Australia, but it's dangerous to predict or assert that it follows one political tradition or another. A, that's not true, and B, that's not fair. And C, I think it lets political parties off the hook, because I know that we have to fight very hard for political support. I don't want to go on and on. We're really here to listen to you, but I wanted to speak and let you know how passionately I feel about this. And I believe it's really important that we elevate some of the voices that we've heard on the other side of politics that have been unambiguously supportive of the community. I don't want to make this party political, and there's been a few that have been fantastic, really good. I think they should be acknowledged. But generally speaking, let's unite, let's be clear about our objectives, and let's talk up how great modern Australia is, because it is fantastic. It's the envy of the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlie. Thank you to the Premier, and thank you to everybody who started at very short notice. It's so good to see so many of my friends, including my pundit, who's married. Very good to see you too. And
for coming this morning. It was an incredibly short notice. I think we reached out to you over the weekend, whether you're clergymen, whether you're community leaders, whether you wear two hats as part of our Indian media leadership or our community leadership. We know we've pulled you out of surgeries, we know we've pulled you out of, and then if there's any unique points you'd like to make, please do so. But again, whether it's the Hindi schools, whether it's our cardiologists, whether it's our...
And that's not just an abstract point that we're making for how a media debate should take place or how a parliamentary debate should take place. I think we all know that when there is language that is coming off social media, as they were crossing the road a couple hundred metres away, someone screaming, running down the street saying, "Why are you in my country? You shouldn't be here." And that type of behaviour, I know, ability to ensure that you can practice your faith, your culture, your religion, of any type, be it Hindu, Sikh, Muslim. So disappointing we find ourselves in a situation in which we have to do it again for the Australian interview. Positive news is equally that we make available the opportunities that are in our Commonwealth to everyone who's prepared to make a contribution as well. And I think therefore that affirming that today is really important. Also, I think it's just really important that the community knows the government takes this very seriously. When we're seeing extremist organising directed at any community, we take that very, very seriously. And as well, and we do want to send a very strong message out today that we are listening, but also that we are proud of the state we built, we're proud of the nation that we built. We do it very well.
Good morning. I want to thank everyone for being here. Totally disturbed by the recent activity. I want to touch on one thing. We had a mental area health district. She's very active in a local regional community that was concerned. At the time, I don't think I truly appreciated that fear. I actually thought, we're in Australia. We've got to call these elements out. That's the only way we're going to stop it from progressing. I think we've got to be calling it out. I think the premising to all of your perspectives today and what you have to say, because it's really crucial in terms of how we move forward. Thank you so much again for being here.
thanks, Minister. Just before we go, if there's any offence, it's more.
And also, at some point, I will have to depart. I don't want you to believe that that's anything other than my interest.
The first thing, I'll just divide the comments into two sections as to what I've seen. The first thing being community and the general level of fear that the Minister talked about, and the second thing about a more practical element about... I do think, obviously, you've tapped on a very, very important issue about there is a general... people who are younger, people who are first-gen, second-gen migrants, who have all been quite taken aback by the focus on South Asia, and then more recently, the concern that what you see in the US and in Europe, the normalization of that rhetoric at a political level, are important in that regard, that people do need to feel accepted. The fact that we're holding this is already a great positive step, and I congratulate obviously all of you for holding this, and I know it has great meaning to everyone here. I think the second thing is also putting it out, as you say, and it's great that we're seeing, you know, media rhetoric about trying to put that down, but we're seeing a potential normalisation, obviously from the opposition, but it's concerning. To the extent that obviously there is bipartisan support, and it's good that some of those comments have been called out, but I do, where people have seen from their, you know, federal leaders the impact of what that has on communities. So the impact of these sorts of meetings has actually a really, really big impact for all of us. Genuinely concerned that when you've seen what's happened many years ago in Christchurch, for example, that it only takes one actor to, at a moment where there might be the neo-Nazi elements of the protests, but also the comments by Jacinta Price as well. I think it's taken a step towards normalising years of strongly critiqued TikTok and Reels and that sort of thing. That normalisation at a political level, I think.
Decided I'll go and check that is Australia really a racist country. So I looked up Pew Research Centre, World Values. Australians are very fair-minded people, always willing to give it a go. Most Australians are migrants themselves, and as early as February this year, we had Mark Burgess, the ASIO Director General, and he had flagged extremism as one of the rising problems in this country. And he had said that we can expect spikes in activities that are directed to incite violence against various groups in Australia so as to endanger the peace, order, or good government of the Commonwealth. Now, the immigration debate is being hijacked by bad faith actors. They're not engaging in policy. They're using immigration. Have good faith leaders across all political lines reclaim this debate. We need to remind Australians that migrants are not a burden. They're the builders of the country, culturally, socially, and economically. We often hear when 1 in every 2 Australians has a parent born overseas. But let's talk about the economic reality of what migrants bring to for the Indian Australian community, that 10% of the Indian Australians are engaged in health burdens which could fall on yourselves, taking care of your parents and other people. It builds up. Yeah, I would say to go to India and build up that platform again, because we need to counter any of these negative effects which are being discussed about Australia in India and other overseas countries.
Not as if the students leave us when they graduate from the school. They keep connected, so you can imagine how many families we are connected with. And our messages go right across